Thank you, sir. Is this the first thing you're working on? Thank you. Whenever you're actually, this year I'm going to put a power chair because that's yeah, he would be where's my phone?
Chinese place.
Yeah? It's a good He wants all of us to move down there because they are going to video. And then it's videotape. So that's being spread out.
Welcome everyone. This is exciting to see so many people out. I think everyone in this room would agree that Walden County is such a special place, and you know we're in the prime, the right time to choose what we want our county to look like. We don't want to become a Panama City or Odessa. Not that those are bad places; those are good places. But yes, have your crowd over there, have your all that stuff that goes on. We want to be unique. We want to be special. We want to maintain our personality. So that's what we're all here about today, is to share. We're going to go around the room and just tell me who you are. I see some of our key leaders. Jackie, thank you for coming, and Jim, thank you for coming. And Bill, I can always know when I've got a meeting going on, because he's going to be here, and I appreciate that, and others too. So let's go around the room and just introduce yourself, tell us, what you're about, and then we will talk a day Bill Wood. It's just a time limit, he cannot go on and on, but just a quick synopsis of what we talked about last time. We don't want to repeat, and then we're going to turn it over to Austin Mount, who's with West Florida Regional Planning Council. We're talking about a strategic plan for Walden County, so that we have a big picture of what we're going to look like in 5 years and 10 years. The only problem is we're looking for money. So we'll get it. This is just a great time of, what we thought was meant for our harm with the BP oil spill has really turned out to be a blessing and a good thing for us. So we're going to use our money wisely. We're going to get some great projects and move this country forward in a positive way. So if we can start back here and just tell us who you are, and if you have not signed in, please sign in before you leave today.
Good afternoon. My name is John Youngbeck. I'm the local owner and operator of a logistics, consulting, and transportation infrastructure financing consulting organization, headquartered in the center of the beach. I know where to find money, and that's why I'm here to help.
I like you. You're the son of the sheep. My favorite friend is John Fitch.
John Finch, I own Finch Transportation Sunshine Show Limousine. I've been here 15 years, and we have the largest transportation company in Northwest Florida.
Jackie Markel, here on behalf of Better South Walton, and that's what I want, Better South Walton, but I want a better Walton. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Burns. I'm Executive Director with Career Source at Northwest Walton.
Hi, I'm Lee Goodson with Bullet Pass Architects. We're planners and architects and team builders in this area. And we're based in Pensacola, but we do a lot of work in Bay County, Oglala County, and Walton County. We're interested in helping try to use some of this money to build better projects in this area.
Right, and you had some great ideas last meeting, and I've already started thinking about the Eglin stuff, and so thank you for next.
Hi, I'm Donna Johns. I'm the owner of Donna J. Investigations. I'm a private investigator in this area since 1999.
Great, thank you, Donna, for coming.
Hello, I'm Judea Crane, and I'm with the Walton County Prevention Coalition, and we work to improve the health of the community, the well-being of the community. But I also own Sapphire Island, RV Resort and Campground that's north of here.
Lee, Arno, David.
Hi, Dave White. Have the local newspaper called So All Right. It's direct mail to everybody in South Walton.
I'm Lee Perry, I own Aslan Mining, and also my wife owns Interiors.
Joel Paul Jr. I work for Tri-County Community Council. We're in 7 counties in Northwest Florida. Unfortunately, I don't get to rub shoulders with a lot of y'all. Our clientele is the ultra poor, the very poorest of the poor. We get programs like Head Start, help people get to medical appointments that don't have transportation. We pay delinquent light bills and first month rent for people that are being evicted. We're a community action agency. Again, we represent 7 counties.
And I might add that Joel was one of our past county commissioners, did a great job, we miss him, but.
Still in recovery.
Nothing more needs to be said.
Amen, Bill.
I'm Lee Moore with Power Group, Portfolio Real Estate. Sue Cohen, I'm sitting in for Charlie Moore, San Marcos Technical College. Great place for career technical training and helping to address the needs not only of Walton County, but the entire county.
Jim Bagby, I'm the general manager of One Seagrove Place, and I've been on the West Florida Regional Planning Council before, and several other entities in the area.
I'm Campbell, I'm a business owner, also vice chair of the Walton County Economic Development Alliance, and the city mayor of the city of Piedmont.
Kevin Crystal, commercial real estate agent with Keller Williams. I have 38 desks in Fort Walton, Crestview, every office we have.
I'm Laura Ekstrom. I'm with Commissioner Tony Anderson's office.
I'm Jay Tusa, TDC Executive Director.
I'm Bill Fletcher, and I'm on the Chambers Board and NFL Children's Advocacy Center and a few others.
Hi, I'm Paul Landers. I have a parenting firm named Brand New Strategic Creative. It's moved into the area since March of last year. It is trying to integrate our design and strategic planning services.
I'm Jason Sheeler. I'm the pastor of Hope Lutheran Church and also the chairman of the South Walton Ministerial Association. And we're here just to help make our community better.
Amen.
I'm Bob Brook, Walton County citizen, and I just want to see where people would like to take the county that I chose to retire to.
And actually, it was Bob's idea to have a strategic plan. I mean, I think we've all talked about it at some point, but he's kind of the catalyst, and he's a faithful person that comes to our meetings, so we appreciate you, Bob.
Bill Linfeld, Walton County Economic Development Alliance, and I share Joel's pain.
I'm Philip Poundstone. I'm the owner of Rent Gear here, Bike Beach Baby Rental Company, as well as Tours and Adventures.
And he started a new vendor. They're making other vendors accountable. They're trying to help our job by making other people accountable. So we'll get an update on that later, see if it's working.
I'm Mike Parker. I'm retired from Walden County. I live in the north end of the county, and I'm here to request Commissioner Nichols.
Gus, just tell us who you are.
I'm Gus Andrews, in the real estate business, local development.
Hi, I'm Juliet Bottom with Gulf Power. I'm the local manager for Walton County in North Okaloosa.
Mike Langton, president of Langton Consulting out of Jackson, Florida. Another wonderful place, but not as good as well.
Absolutely.
And I'm a grants management and grant writing consultant for the Golf Consortium, which is in charge of the $300 million of Pot 3. And I'm here to market and get some new business out here in this part of the area.
Austin F., Executive Director for the West Florida Regional Planning Council, which covers wonderful Walton County.
I'm Jessica Sunday. I'm with West Florida Regional Planning Council as well.
And I'm Bill Williams, Restore Coordinator, your tour guide from last meeting to go through it. Y'all bear with me, I've got my wife in a wheelchair and I've got Gal today, so we're bringing up the handicap. So we are ADA accessible, I can assure you.
This is his wonderful wife.
Yes, I'm Amber, consultant working with several clients here in Walton.
Okay, Bill, we got everybody, make sure you sign the sign-in sheet. If anybody wants to move up, we're not going to invite anybody, so you're welcome to come up if you want to.
That way.
So Bill, if you want to go ahead and just give a brief, like what pot 1 and 2, and just a brief overview of what we talked about last time, and then we'll turn it over to Austin for some strategic planning.
This is an endeavor that the chair and the commission directed us to do, to basically reach out to our community as a whole. And it's great to see all the different stakeholders from so many diverse areas today, including ministry. So if we mess up, I'm glad we got somebody with good connections up top. But the biggest opportunity that we talked about was bringing our community together in master planning. As the commissioner indicated, we have an opportunity through tragedy to transform these dollars into truly, I think, unbelievable visionary opportunities for the county. And I'll bring two things real quick to there. We went through, this is the second meeting, we're going to have these every month. We're putting our team together and formalizing, which we'll talk about a little bit. But just for a quick update, the Triumph Board, for those of you who are here or tracking us as we go, they did appoint the other two members that we had talked about related to House Bill 7077. Don Gates, former Senator President, was appointed and will take over chairmanship of that committee come January. And Jason Schoaf, a gentleman from Gulf County, where I'm from, with his family owns the natural gas business down there. So the eastern side of the 8 counties wanted representation. So that 7 board member has been seated. They are going to meet monthly, at least until January. You have to remember, not only as that money, as it went through session that we talked about, and I'll recap this, again, this is a very informal meeting. You don't have to 3 minutes and get recognized by the chair. Just raise your hand and we're trying to interact. So if you have anything or we're going too fast, slow us down.
Where do they meet?
That meeting was in Pensacola. They said that they will, they actually are going to have, they had discussions about having a physical presence where, you can obviously reach in with internet and all that stuff, but where someone physically could walk in. And so they are discussing how they would set that up, not having one in all 8 counties, but maybe having quadrants, maybe one for the Santa Rosa, Escambia, something over here and over there. So they're working on that. They hired Burke and Blue to be their legal counsel, and they hired a lady who was formerly with the Bush administration, Susan Skelton, to be their executive director. And you have to realize this is a statutorily created company, technically under DEO, and they're starting from scratch. The scratch part is good because they got $300 million that just got transferred. But they'll be putting their folks in both what's statutorily required from IGs and attorneys and accountants and things of that nature, but also the mammoth opportunity that is going to come from all of you in the other 8 counties. They're looking at the application process. Their goal was to set up some type of portal or some way of communicating with that staff so that if you had recommendations, Bob, for example, strategy and different things, what you want in the application. So they're in that process. So they haven't said where that next meeting will be, except it will be the 16th, and it will rotate monthly. Look for their website, which is myfloridatriumph.com. That will start, they're just getting that up. So I'm not sure if they have, a couple days I looked, it still wasn't up. But that will start doing it. You can communicate and get back with our office until that happens with Miss Susan directly. She'll put you on the mailer, the information list, and all the things with the different members. So that's kind of a quick update on them. They're doing their housekeeping, getting organized. They anticipated moving. It was very clear from the board members as they were seated, they wanted to move very fast, but also very cautiously. They wanted to make sure that it was transformational projects. They wanted ideas from the public on how that process application should look, but we don't know those answers yet. We anticipate maybe 60, 90 days those applications being on the street, but what are those qualifiers? They talked about return on investment, they talked about leverage funds, they talked about resilient communities and the projects that would be there. They talked about collaborative relationships, but they're very much in their infancy. So it does give Walton counties and the other counties an opportunity to put their team together. Yes, ma'am.
I know originally, whenever Mr. Gates sort of laid the groundwork for that board, or not for that board, but for that money, he was pretty specific. They were pretty specific about what they wanted to accomplish with it. As they kind of went back in the hands of the House, they opened the gate a little bit wider as in regards to what those monies could be used for. Is that still a kind of balance zero? In other words, I'll give an example. Gates said, the two things that he wanted it to accomplish was, economics that, penetrated the helpful Lake counties, that was not totally dependent on, tourism nor the military, because a hurricane could destroy the tourism and the military could have one decision out of the Pentagon that could wipe us out. So those are, kind of unstable issues. So he was basically wanting to direct it to other sources. And one of the things I remember him saying is it was not really set up just for infrastructure for municipalities and counties. As it went to the state, they began to entertain those infrastructures for the municipalities and counties. And so, is that all just hot air right now, or?
No, sir. It was codified in statute. So from where they were in the original Gulf Coast Corridor Act that was codified in 2013, the economic model that we've all been accustomed to for incentivizing businesses, as you relayed, Speaker Corcoran did not like that. And as it came through the process of legislation, that was changed. I'll go back in a moment and go over the allowable uses. The biggest change is if you're Boeing and we were trying to recruit you to Walton County and say, look, we'll put $10 million into your hangars and et cetera, that has gone away. There is no direct funding to a direct business. You can talk about clusters and you can talk about, hang on, my wife will run me over, I'll do something. But no, sir, but it has been, there are allowable uses now. That's part of what we want to do, reiterate today, of what you can use the funds for. And you can still very much be an engine for economic development, but it is anchored in tourism and economic development and tourism or infrastructure that we think of, roads, bridges, those type things, scenarios. They put education in there, K through 20 and career source. So we've been given tools, we just can't give it to a direct corporation. That being said, there's also funds that I'm going to talk about today. Let me go ahead and get into it. The statute, the House bill that we're talking about is House Bill 7077, signed by the governor June the 2nd. You pull that up? Yes. Go to the allowable uses if you don't mind. This is all available. We went through this at our last meeting in depth. We spent a couple of hours on this. I gave you an overview of all of the moving parts, both the federal side and the state side. And this conversation is just about the state side. But let me show you in the bill, when she pulls it up. There you go. I just can't even see it. Let me slide around. I have to hobble too. I got to get off this foot. To answer your question, Mayor, specifically, these are the things that you can use the funds for. Everything from ad valorem reduction, local match for different projects, Obviously, infrastructure at the county and city and school board level. Grants to local government for emergency management, and we'll talk about that. I'm working with our local emergency management person now. We've got K through 20, the sustainable and transferable work skills. I met with Michelle with Career Source. I think that they're going to be a very vital partner to us. If you look at the way the grants and transferable ways to a single or non-single employer, this is where we can bring our business people in. What can we do through the education training components? And then the grants that promote tourism. And what's great about the tourism side, if you, as I mentioned in our last meeting, if you look where it says infrastructure, instead of the traditional heads and beds or marketing and TDC scenarios that are there, this gives the TDC a lot more flexibility. And Jay and I have been working on some projects for hotel and restaurant management type components with physical features and structures. But that's kind of why we're here. We want to look at these allowable uses, look at the community, and build this framework. And I'll go through it, but there is a definitive change that's been codified into law, which they talked about at the meeting. They have to go with these uses. But there isn't a limit to a private person or an NGO putting in there, but it still has to go with these uses.
Really, that second item, what all is encompassed by infrastructure?
That's a great question. And if you think traditional, the way I was told by most of the folks during session, and they put in specific language, then they took specific language out. So they left it benign, but they said, think like you normally do. If it's broadband, if it's a road and bridge, you know, if it's water, if it's sewer, traditional things that fall under the government domain. One of the things that the speaker made also very clear was that he didn't want to see this money in a supplanting of what your normal responsibilities are. So if you're taxing folks in certain areas, this is okay to augment that, but not to supplant it. And I think that's a very important question when we start talking about what projects bubble up. And Mayor, to go over the point too, the 8 counties did a very good job of lobbying and making sure that there was some equity into the process, because you throw $300 million out there, we're going to have a food fight in the process. What the legislature did, and to give you a real quick recap so I get to Austin, they put 5% that's guaranteed to each county over the 15-year cycle of these dollars. The $300 million was actually part of a $400 million payment. That was the first payment from DP. The 75% of anything that Pam Bondi's lawsuit acquired was to come to the 8 counties. That remained. But to tell you how quickly these dollars can evaporate, the $100 million that was supposed to be spent from Taylor to Monroe said, poof, it was not allocated and went into general fund. So we do need to applaud our local delegation and the leadership that did commit to these dollars and keep them in the panhandle. Senator Broxson, one other statute that I wanted to tell you was House Bill 7079. He put a great bill in that was approved into this, that put this into a trust fund where money was automatically transferred within 30 days of receipt. That keeps us from having to go to the legislature each year and dogging out all of these appropriations. Now, that doesn't mean they can't sweep the trust fund. They can. But it does mean we don't have to go up there and go through another layer of fighting all of South End. I mean, they got more senators in Miami than we got in the whole panhandle. So that's a big deal.
Until 2021.
Yeah, until 2020. Yes, yes, sir.
Can we go back to the allowable use chart?
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to point out what I think personally is the most important word on this whole chart. And it's right there. Diversification. We're a two-trick pony, or two-pony trick, or whatever you want to call it. We need more diversification. The economic base of this county. And I think that allows infrastructure investments to support diversification. I think that, personally, I think that's where the county will.
You are 100% correct. If you look at resilience and diversification, and resilience and diversification means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but your point is well taken. The lessons learned, not only the environmental impacts and the scenario of how we were threatened at a guttural level there, but the scenario of how do we move this community. And we have great, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but how do we diversify that community? They are going to look at return on investment. You are going to have to look at matching to these dollars. It's not free G's. And we have to go through those 7 folks. But those 7 folks are from the Panhandle. That makes it a lot easier than having to deal with the legislature as a whole, which you formerly served on. But the scenario that I look at is we have to do 3 things, and part of it is here. Number 1, we have to have that strategic vision that the chairman spoke of. Where are we actually trying to go? If not, we're going to be project-oriented versus process-oriented, and we're going to lose. We may get a couple of good projects, but we have no symmetry to anything. We're not matched, we're not leveraged, and there's no end game. So what we're doing at the county, I'm going at the next county commission meeting, so I haven't got approval for this, but we're asking the board to give us the resources of a team that we need, planners, grant writers, things of that nature, but also starting with a strategic plan. We don't want the strategic plan to last 3 years in the process, but it needs a parallel course while we're working on this project so that we can move a long-term vision strategy and then we can start looking at our projects. So I encourage all of you to look at the process versus the projects to begin with, and then we get to the end game, because it should be self-fulfilling in the process. But I hope that answered your question. It is not the traditional economic model, but it's a great marketing tool for business. If you go to anywhere in the country and you say, you want to come to the Panhandle of Florida, we've got dollars that are atypical that we can go after. And remember that I said in the last meeting, you've got Pot 1 money, which is federal, Pot 2 that's federal, Pot 3 that's federal, Pots 4 and 5 that are federal, that we can link to. You also have, you saw the big fight with the governor and EFI and DEO and all of that. That was a mess, but at the end of the day, the governor still has $85 million that he can use for VOTEC, infrastructures, etc. We want to tie those dollars to Triumph dollars to Pot 1 dollars, so that when we go in, we say, here's our plan, here's our vision, here's our leverage and connected dollars, and we've got our community behind us, our cities, our counties, our school boards, our citizenry. So the more collaborative we are, the more organized and the more succinct. We're not really competing with the other counties, but we are. They're guaranteed $15 million. So our suggestion and the chairman's direction has been come up with a great plan for the 5%. Know what we're doing with our school boards and our cities, etc. And then what are we doing regionally to go after this other $160 million that anybody can swing at? And if we're the leader of the pack with a plan, I think we're going to be more successful. So real quick, don't forget about the other pots of money. All of this is on, we can have it online. I can get you hard copies of it. It's very complex. But that's about as good as we could do getting it in shorthand kind of a thing. But go on our website at Walton County, also with the Florida Association of Counties. If you look at their website, there's a tab on the right-hand side that says Advocacy. If you click on that, go down to Gulf Consortium. They're only dealing with Pot 3. But within Pot 3, there's a great repository of information. The federal act is there, state laws there, everything that we're doing in the process. So I'll pause real quick and see if we have any questions. This is going to be, like I said, a monthly meeting. I went through in depth with all of this last time. I'll be glad to circle back with you individually. But what the commissioner or the chairman wanted us to do was look to our regional planning council, which obviously serves 5 of the 8 here on the coast. We've worked with them before. And if you look at cities and school boards, everybody started getting very parochial and very fragmented and going all over the map. Austin and his team stepped up and said, look, we're in this together. How can we bring the vision of each county and the vision of a collective group of counties together? So when you think about the Panhandle of Florida making it matter, how can we make it matter? So what he started doing, and I've been asked to help them, is to go into, like we went to the city of Destin, we went into Fort Walton, we met with Pensacola. We're trying to make sure that we, as best we can, keep everybody in the boat using good heads instead of bad emotions. Because people ask me all the time, say, what's the biggest obstacle to this? And I'll tell you, it's ourselves. We will fight each other over a nickel. There will be so many misguided givings, and if you're environmental, you're thinking, I'm going to fight business and business. This is a time to lay those swords down and focus on what we can actually do. The main thing, no matter where you're from, no matter what your interest is, no matter what your political affiliation is, these are non-taxpayer monies that we all have an opportunity to share and build our community. You'll never, hopefully, God, we never have another oil spill to do. But I will tell you, you will never have a chance like this to move our community in a more effective manner. So today we're going to talk about what's important to y'all. The Regional Planning Council, as Greg called it, red dot, blue dots kind of thing, they start looking. But they do the sausage making. They take all of the core principles and say, what's important to Walton County from the stakeholders? We've got to get that data. Then they start doing it. He's also going to talk to you about some efforts that are regionally happening with the University of Florida, with their group, University of Florida, University of West Florida, and Florida's Great Northwest. So our partner in all of this is Austin Mountain and his team, and so I'll let him go through and guide that the same format. He'll give you an overview, but ask him any questions that you have.
Billy? As Billy mentioned, my name is Austin Mountain, Executive Director for the West Florida Regional Planning Council. Many of you I know, many of you I've met before. I'm going to do something today. We're going to do a little activity with you guys. If you would, just take a few minutes. Try not to cheat, don't look at your neighbors, because we want specifically your input on this. We want your opinions. So this is something Commissioner Jones asked for us to do, and I'm going to pass it out to all Walton County residents. So if you don't live in Walton County, let me know, and I will not pass you one. And I also have some pencil here to go with this. I'm doing this a little backwards. Rather than give you my presentation ahead of time, I want to give this to you because we're going to tally the results, and we're going to talk about it at the end of the meeting today if we have time.
So this is going to have to staple together.
Say those words are for you.
I might need to see if I can. That's Okay, so on this
Which one would water sewer on 331 be?
Okay, so that's the water sewer is going to be, it's not on the front one there.
I guess this is
on the back one, so that's probably your quality of place. Quality of place is going to have water and sewer in there.
Where's healthcare on here?
So healthcare, this is just, we're just looking at infrastructure.
Hospital, to me, hospitals are infrastructure. I can't get a place where the county built a hospital.
You're looking at it from a community facility standpoint. That's going to be on facilities.
Education, there's access, and institution, so that's all facilities.
Yeah. It's just doesn't have a
we do the second page as well?
Yes, please, yes. If you go on the first page, go ahead on to the second page. I know we're just giving you a few minutes to do this if you would, but this is going to be really, really key for us moving on into the future as we move forward with the strategic plan.
Under housing, what is SLH?
Single family.
Single family.
We don't have to make a sign, we don't. Like, nice, I have less one, but we don't have one.
Just so we can
Unfortunately, that's some of the choices we've had to make.
I'm sure. Yes, and yes.
First.
I know what I like. will. I want to make it fun. I just want it all. That's right. Yes, sir. Former chair, yes, because, yeah, when I moved to Gold Power, I had to give up that consulting. But yes, I mean, oh, yeah, no. Oh, yeah. Have you met Scott? She was the lady, she's now the power. They just use that to Gold Power. But thanks for making that.
Jessica's going to be tallying up these results. We're going to see if we can get to them in time before you leave today to kind of talk about what the results are of the group. These planning activities that we do are always very, very important. And it's always good to gauge the crowd to get everybody's opinion collectively and see how it all ties together. What we're working on right now is across our 7-county region that we are given. We're doing a comprehensive economic development strategy, and it's required by the federal government. We are the federally designated economic development district, and so with that, we have to do this economic development plan every 5 years. Well, it just so happens this is our 5th year. It ties in really, really well with everything that's going on across the region. Commissioner Jones has made it one of her priorities to do a strategic plan for Walton County. So the alignment of our plan with the county plan, with the Florida Foundation, with the Northwest Florida Forward Plan, everything's coming together. And I know a lot of people sometimes will criticize it and say, gosh, we're getting planned to death. We're ready to actually start doing something. But I can tell you what's going to happen when all these plans are done. You're going to see crazy, crazy momentum, crazy implementation. And that's one of the things that we make sure that we do now in our business of the Planning Council. Anytime we develop a plan, it has an extra section on there of implementation. How can it be implemented? Whose responsibility is it to implement? And it's very important to have that, because a plan that sits on a shelf and collects dust is a waste of time, waste of effort, and we don't want that anymore. So we will actually put in there who's responsible, who can get it done, and what agencies can fund that specific activity. And so that's something important that we're switching to right now. We just wrapped up a grant, or an actual project and grant in Freeport, a recreation trails master plan, and it outlines multiple opportunities that they can now take that plan and implement it forward, whether they utilize our services or somebody else's services. It gives them the paved way of how they can accomplish that. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my presentation. So the West Florida Regional Planning, so we're a little unique in what we do. So we're one regional council, and we're comprised of 9 separate organizations, actually. We have the Regional Planning Council, which is one organization, what we call the mothership, or the umbrella. We have 3 metropolitan planning organizations, also known as TPOs, which some of you, if you're elected officially, you more than likely sit on that board. And we have 5 additional regional organizations that we operate out of our organization as well. 29 standing committees and boards, 35 staff members with 5 open positions, so we are growing, we're growing fast. And collectively with all of our boards, we have over 150 elected officials. So we are a very good resource for anybody that wants to try to accomplish something regionally, because I guarantee you, if you're an elected official, we've interacted with you at some point, and chances are you're my boss in some fashion. So this is our region. This is statutorily the region that we are given. We are considered a state agency by definition, but we also operate independently from the state. So we have our own board made up of members of our region, county commissioners, city council members, and also governor appointees that all convene together and make decisions for the region. And you can barely see, but on the left-hand side, just over Pensacola, there's a green dotted line. That's the Florida-Alabama TPO or MPO. Right there in the middle of the red dotted line, that's the Okaloosa-Walton TPO. And then you can't see it at all, but the Bay County TPO. So that's the 3 TPOs that we have. And we'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. These are all the transportation programs that we offer. Again, the Florida-Alabama, Okaloosa-Walton, Bay TPO. We have 2 regional TPOs that do transportation planning activities as well. We also administer the transportation disadvantaged. So the gentleman from the Tri-County, I know you work with Howard quite a bit. He's on our staff. We have a commuter assistance program called Ride On, where we're trying to work with different organizations like Sunshine Shuttle, the park and rides at FDOT to try to get people to leave their cars and hop on a bus or carpool and try to commute and alleviate some of this traffic congestion that we have. We also offer every year a transportation symposium. This year it will be the week of Veterans Day in November at the Bay Point Sheridan. There'll be about 3 or 4 days of events that we're going to have. We're going to have a couple autonomous vehicles actually on site, giving demonstrations of how those work. So we're really excited this year. We're bringing in some really high-powered people to talk about transportation and what's happening in the nation and in the world. And then we also have our Northwest Florida Clean Cities Coalition, and that organization is trying to encourage all of our residents in cities and counties and fleets to switch from gas and diesel emissions to compressed natural gas, electric, different things that might be a little more environmentally conscious. And especially in this area, if you're stuck in traffic, you don't want to be smelling the fumes of somebody else or that bus that's pumping it all out there. So it just tries to promote the renewable energy vehicles. And so here, really what I'm here to talk about today, that was just a little background of our organization, but what I want to talk about today is the planning activities and some of the efforts that have gone underway over the last 12 months as it relates to economic transformation. Some of you have been involved in the process that Florida's Great Northwest has put together, the Northwest Florida Forward Plan. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But that was really the spark that kind of started the whole regional panhandle planning activities. And there's a lot of great information that came out of it. I'll jump into that here in just a second. But these are some of the partners that have joined forces to make sure we can get the panhandle together. And as Billy was saying earlier, we are our own worst enemy when it comes to trying to attain funding and attain projects, because if we fight and bicker, it's not going to get anybody anywhere else. So all these organizations and all the people within them understand that we have to come together and we have to work together to be able to accomplish greatness. So our Regional Planning Council, the Northwest Florida League of Cities, the University of West Florida, and Florida's Great Northwest have all teamed together to say, hey, we recognize each person's planning activities, we recognize each of your efforts, and we all want to join forces and support each other in making this happen. So through that, we have developed the Northwest Florida Forward Plan. And I'll give you a little introduction and background about what that is. In the end result of this Northwest Florida Forward Plan, it developed 5 strategy focus areas. And each of these strategy areas have their own living, breathing organizations, basically, their own committees that are made up of different members that are specific to that. So talent is going to have the career source, it's going to have business representatives and different individuals that are involved in attracting workforce and educating and making sure that workforce is ready for the jobs and ready for the future. And then business vitality, we'll go into a little, I'll just skip to the next slide because it kind of jumps into what these specific are. So talent, as you can see, create a regional workforce. And these are the strategies that came out of that Northwest Florida Forward Plan. So each of these strategies have their own specific actions. And what's really important is each of these strategies can be accomplished. Again, it specifically outlines who and what and where can accomplish these specific strategies. So this plan doesn't sit on a shelf. And there's also probably many other organizations that can help implement these strategies that were just either overlooked or not sought out or not involved in the process. So if you specifically have an organization that says, hey, you know what, I can be a part of that, again, these committees are still alive. They're still meeting, they're still discussing. Either get with me or get with Kim over at the Flores Great Northwest. We can plant you in on one of those committees to where you can have input and involvement. It wasn't, again, it wasn't one of those plans that's just going to sit there and not have anything done. They're still meeting. We're still active. In fact, we're going to have one of our infrastructure meetings. Well, we're actually having one kind of right now with that workshop that we just did a little bit ago with that. And so that'll be one of our meetings that we're having. Let's go on to business vitality. Ensure the growth of the region's key industry clusters. That's going to be somebody else's arena besides ours because we don't necessarily work directly with the businesses. We kind of focus on infrastructure, as I call paving the way for business. We want to make sure that the businesses have the resources, and it's not really, and there's a lot of talk right now about what is economic development. Is economic development actually giving money to a business to get them to come in? Well, our role is a little different. We want to pave the way for economic development. We want to be able to put in an industrial park that has the infrastructure there so that the business can locate in. If they say, hey, you know what, you have a great site, but you don't have the water and sewer there, well, we'll make sure we can help to get that. There's federal grants out there, there's local grants that we can tap into to put that infrastructure in there for that business to come in. We specifically don't necessarily have to give them money if the site is attractive enough to draw them in anyways. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you're competing with other states that have the money, that they're willing to take that risk on, that they're willing to say, hey, we want your business so bad to help out this community. But there's lots of opportunities, so I think mostly our role is just making sure that the infrastructure is there, making sure that we don't have any big gaps. Let's go on to the next one. Good. So again, infrastructure. One of the main strategies was to use the regional planning councils to address the shared infrastructure need and other economic development issues. So to tie into our own regional plan, so this is the super region plan, the Northwest Florida plan. Our own little regional plan is being developed right now, and we should have it done in a couple months. And it's looking really good. It's looking like transportation is coming out pretty well on top. Within transportation, there's going to be some transit issues that we found, some parking issues, major arterial routes like 98. We're already seeing some activity on 331. People are wanting to develop it, and they're just chomping at the bit to get a stoplight put on 331. And we're going to have to watch it because, as Commissioner Jones opened up, so that you have good transportation right now, but if we just let everybody have a free-for-all, it'll turn into a parking lot, just like Destin will be. So we have to protect the integrity of what we're given. FDOT, I use this as a real good example, and I don't think my friends over in Gulf Breeze mind, but I use Gulf Breeze as a real prime example of what not to do. FDOT gives you a nice 4-lane highway, and you put a school on each side, and you put stoplights in there, and you put a Publix, and you just fill it all in, and then pretty now, you can't even move traffic. You can't even get an emergency vehicle through there on a Saturday afternoon because it's all locked up. So we have to make sure that we are protective of what we are given, and that's the stance that FDOT has too. FDOT says, well, what did you do with the highway that we gave you? Did you fill it full of stoplights and dump thumbs and public guessing? So nothing against public. I like public, but I'm rambling. Entrepreneurship and innovation. That's another one of those not talent, but communities that the Northwest Florida Forward Plan has. If you're interested in that, we can get you the contacts. She's reading. And I can email this out to anybody that wants to really truly read through it. I know there's a lot of information on these slides, and I'm just kind of breezing through them. Quality of place, that's another key component to what the plan outlined, is making sure that the communities have something that draws people in and also for the residents that live there. You know, make sure that it's a livable community. Livability is a hot topic right now, but it's important because the residents have needs, the tourists have needs, they don't often align. So we have to make sure that we can get those two things to fit. Find that common ground somewhere in the middle that we can make sure that the tourists are happy when they come in and the residents are happy when the tourists come in. Yeah, it's a tough balance. So implementing the plan is where we're at right now. We're wanting to make sure that everybody knows about the plan, everybody has an access to it. These are the people to contact if you're interested in joining any of those specific council or committees. If you're interested in infrastructure, contact me. Quality of place, contact me. Your turn. The website, the northwestfloridaforward.com, has the entire plan on there. And it also has some really additional good information down at the bottom. It'll have the county snapshots, which I'm going to show you in Walton County here in just a second. But there's tons of information, tons of data. This whole project was paid for by about a $350,000 grant from the federal government because they recognized, they saw the need in the Panhandle. And they said, you know what, we want to fund this activity for the Panhandle. And so Florida's Great Northwest, we helped Florida's Great Northwest get this grant. And we're just happy to be a part of it. We're happy that somebody's taking some action on it. When it first started out, it was kind of geared towards trying. They're saying, hey, we've got a big windfall of money coming in. We want to make sure that we're going to use it wisely. And then some of the rural counties said, well, don't forget about us because we're still part of your region. So it got revamped into a total economic transformation plan, which is it's a great plan. So there's something in it for everybody. And each of the counties have their very own little county snapshots. And I don't know if everybody can see here, but up in the top corner there are all those little bubbles. That's your jobs, your job clusters, your industry clusters that it looks at. And it tells you whether or not you're ahead of the game compared to the national average, if you're behind in the game. But these are mostly your prime industries here, and I can't really quite see from here. But the government, that's obviously going to be Eglin, that's going to be organizations like that to help support that. Your healthcare looks pretty good. Your accommodations, that's your retail. So obviously you have some clusters that exist, some diversification. But again, the diversification could be a little bit better. What we saw we did a plan for Freeport, and Freeport's got very few clusters specifically within that community. And so when the recession hit, they took a big hit. A lot of jobs in Freeport are construction oriented, and so when the construction started tanking, Freeport lost a lot of jobs within Freeport. There you go.
Which part do you want to get to?
Yeah, we're going back up now.
It's not prepared.
Sorry, really, I might be more like. And so all the numbers down there on the bottom, if you're interested in looking at it, again, this is all on the website. It's all available to anybody out there. Let's go to the next page, if you would. This one is one of my favorite ones that I like to look at here because you can see on the far right top chart that dark blue line, that's Walton County. That's your population growth.
We know.
That's a good problem to have, but it's also an astounding problem. I mean, any economic developer that looks at this chart is going to say, well, check the data again. I don't know about that. But 128% growth since 1990. That's insane. That's insane for a community to grow that fast.
And the region's at 42.
Yeah, and you can see how fast you're growing over the region. The region is the next lightest blue line, or the lightest blue line on there. Florida is the dashed line, and then the United States is the dotted line. So Walton County is killing it. And the crazy thing is, where are we putting these people?
You look at the engine.
Then when we look at it from a transportation
transportation.
They're all their cars.
Yeah. And then,
395.
yeah, luckily we have a new 4-lane 331, but if this continues for the
There's a
next
parking lot over
20,
there.
30 years, what is this county gonna look like? The infrastructure, and this is sad but true, most of our communities across the region, across the panhandle, have the same infrastructure that's been there for 30, 40, 50 years. So it's just continuing to add more problems to the problems that we already have. So we need to really look and pay attention to what is happening. And Bill, I wish you the best on this, on your adventures. But you got a tough job ahead of you, man. Figuring out where to put all these people and how to get the communities to get along and how do we do all the things that we want to do. And this ties back to that strategic plan. That strategic plan for Walton County is going to be absolutely critical to figure out not only what's needed, but how do we address the problem that's already happening and will happen. Bottom left-hand side, this is a really good chart as well. The top green is your commuting trends, so that's your inflow, people driving into Walton County. The bottom one, the light blue, is people driving out of Walton County. The line in the middle shows the trend, so right now you have more people driving into Walton County than are leaving Walton County, which is somewhat of a good problem to have. You definitely don't want everybody leaving because that means you're a veteran community. So it means that you have jobs that are drawing people in right now. Annual components of resident population change. You can see that the dips down in from the oil spill, the recession, everybody's chart looks that funky like that, but pretty good numbers across the board for Walton County. Okay. If you're looking at industries by your NICS codes, a NICS code is the classification system for which a business is in business. So every existing business that's out there falls into some type of a code classification. And when all that data is collected by the census, they put it out there like this so you can specifically see every job as it relates to a code. So your highest number of jobs is your full-service restaurants, your hotels, your local government, different things like that. So if you're interested in that kind of information, it's out there, it's available. Move on to the next one. Okay, this one's really good. I like this one too. This shows a comparison to the other counties across the region. So they can compare how Walton County pans out to the others. Walton County is the 4th from the left. You can tell because it has all green. So you're growing in all of your sectors and all of your segments. Your labor market's growing, your unemployment rate is getting better, your labor force is getting better, and your population change, which is the alarming one, 2015 to 2025, over 21% growth. That's tremendous. That's absolutely tremendous. Because on the far right, the U.S. is 8.1% and Florida is 12%. So you're almost double what Florida is going to be growing in the next 8 years. We're already in that cycle right now. Again, what do we do with the people? The housing, the transportation, the healthcare. And when we look at healthcare, let's look at the population change for the specific age groups. Age composition, 65 and over, 17.9% growth rate in your senior citizens, your elderly population. Those people are going to need specific needs. Is your community ready to provide that? And then as that, what they call the silvering of America and boom and everything happens, what about the succession? What about because there's tremendous concern about the population, because once that boom moves through the system, what's the rest of the people going to be able to do to sustain that?
Just curious, what's the source of the data and the data?
A lot of it came from, well, all the data came from the Haas Center here at UWF. All the data was pulled from them. Most of it they got from the census. Some of it they got from different other sources that are out there. But
so if it's not a census year up there, they're just extrapolating or interpolating or something?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, the actual plan itself has all the sites of where the sources came from and everything. Just some of it just didn't transfer over to the PDF that I put on here. Oh.
So again, now we're at the implementation part. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on. It's kind of a random slide, but okay. Yeah, you like this? I just made this presentation this morning.
Well, we'll continue.
Strategic planning, we feel like pin at the door.
And that one too. And you're done.
All right. Thank you all. If you guys have any questions.
I was going to ask you, are you totally funded by the state?
No, we are not. Our funding, we are, just how many funding codes do we have? Probably about 150.
Yeah.
We're funded from so many different sources of funding, but I can tell you about 70% of our funds come from the federal source. 20 come from state, and then the other 10% is just crazy hodgepodge projects that we do for anybody and everybody.
So you get paid for those projects? Okay.
There's some work that we're able to do for free, depending on the type of resource that we're getting. For example, our economic development designation that we have, we're able to provide technical assistance to our cities and counties and certain businesses at no cost to them. So we sometimes transform that into grant writing, we sometimes do map preparation, some GIS work, but that doesn't go very far. It's a small amount that we get for that. But we kind of reserve that for our smaller communities like Paxton, Esto, Century.
So what kind of budget do you have?
Just under, well, directly within our organization, operationally, about $4 million. Each of the TPOs have their own specific allocation for transportation projects. It's really complicated. It gets down into it. But so each of the TPOs are federally required to the Federal Highway Bill. And it is an organization that is made up of all the municipalities that are encompassed within it. And we're in partnership with FDOT. So we prioritize all the transportation projects that happen within the boundaries of that TPO. So every state route, every state system, if it's constructed, it's come through our organization to get prioritized and adopted by our board, which Cecilia is on our Oklahoma Walton TPO. So it goes before them, they pass it, goes to DOT, it gets constructed. So every state route that has any type of improvement on it must go through the TPO process.
I'm not on the TPO on the West Florida Regional.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Well, the Phoenix Springs recently submitted a request for the Main Street program, a grant application to the state. Is that something you could have assisted with?
Correct, yeah. We could have helped
At no charge?
Possibly. I like Mayor Campbell.
So we don't expect you to work for free, just anywhere, just in Phoenix.
I like Mayor Campbell so much.
You don't tell me a deal, right?
Also, let me ask you, I noticed that Walton, Bay, Franklin counties are all positive, no red marks. And so they're all positive gainers. Now, I understand that what drives the economic engine in Walton and Bay County. What's driving the economic engine in Franklin?
I have no idea. That's outside our region. And once
Can we pull that chart back up?
Yeah.
See what-
you guys might be able to wait a little
Yeah,
bit
we
more on
can
that.
read it.
Our region stops at Bay, so I can tell you a little bit more about Bay than I can anything beyond that point.
No, it wasn't Franklin. It
I was gonna say Franklin's, I was gonna say that's bad data, just, I can tell you off the top of my head, it's not gonna be Franklin.
It's hard to see that.
Walton, Santa Rosa, the second one here is all
No, it's the
three.
one on the far right.
Florida, that's the state of Florida.
Oh, that's the state of Florida, never mind.
Then you have the 13 counties.
Never mind. I was
Yeah.
thinking that was the county. Never mind. That's the state overall.
Bay County's pretty good too.
Yeah, Bay and Walton seem to be the two that have positive.
Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa's.
Santa Rosa's really the other one.
How's Okaloosa doing?
Oklahoma's the third one here.
Okay.
So the only thing they're red on is this population, age 25 to 44 population change. It went down from 2000 to 2010 by 12%. that a brag?
And the reasons, but the reason those age brackets are important when you're looking at it from an economic development standpoint, you're 25 to 44, that's more of your working group. That's more of the people that are spending money. They're buying houses, they're buying cars, they're going out to eat, they're doing all those things. The 65 and over, they don't need all that stuff. They got the house paid for, they got the car paid for the most part. And so they spend less. So those age brackets are important when you're looking at tax revenue, sales tax, specifically some of the other ad valorem bed tax, things like that. What the amenities. And when we tie all this together, we're also seeing the Haas Center telling us that when it comes down to tourism, Walton County is actually sucking some of the tourism out of Okaloosa County. So you can kind of suck and invest in a little bit into Walton County. So those tourists that might have been, or would, or could have been going to that center now come to Walton County. Because you guys have either better amenities, more amenities, or something that the...
We do everything better.
Yeah, so you guys are doing something better. So we're seeing Okaloosa kind of taking and cooling off, and Walton County beating others. So you guys are doing good stuff. But I would just, again, we'll see it in the strategic plan. We'll find out more specific on Walton County.
Does anyone else have any more questions for Austin? I've asked Bill to talk about the strategic.
Just one quick question. How are you able to theoretically project, like moving forward, like whatever trends might be coming in with regard to traffic, or like how are you able to do an analysis to forecast? Or is it only from statements where we're at backwards, like 14, 15, 16, and we're seeing that? So 17 will be, is there a grid where you can see them all stacked up to see trends annually?
We could put something like that together. Yeah, we could put something like that together as far as it relates to demographics. These are just, there might be more, in the big plan, is there any more detailed information? Because I know these are just the county snapshots, but in the full plan, there might be way more technical data as it relates to you can see more trends.
I don't know, some future data.
Yeah, most things look at historical data. We have a market analysis for the Freeport area in terms of development, and it actually is unique in that it does forecast some of the trends, whereas most of them, I think we go into 2025.
Yeah, I mean, there is some, some of the projections here, because, 2015 to 2025, yeah.
I just always feel like if you think about you think about trends just in general, you can have a 1, 5, or 20, but you think about 20, it's like, there's so many things, and all facets change. By the time you get out there, that the trend is a trend. You start looking at it. So I just was curious about how you quantify even a 5-year trend, especially when you're trying to get internet, base.
Yeah, it's difficult. I don't know if there's any projections in this specific area or not. I can handle it.
Thank you, Austin.
I just want to recap real quick, and we'll go back up for questions. The strategic plan and where we're going. Let me go over that just a little bit more. Again, I got to take it to the board for approval. But our objective is to have 2 parallel courses that are going on also simultaneously. One is an overall strategic plan that addresses the community needs as a whole. All the commissioners, and certainly the chairman's leadership, wants that to happen. So we're going to move forward on that. Austin and Mike, you'll meet here in a minute. We're all talking about how do we do this and what's the best way. The trending. Lee, you said it in the last meeting, it's not where we are, it's going to be, it's going to meet us here in 20 years. Those type things. The Haas Center and the University of West Florida, one of the things that Walton has done, I think, very well, we have reached to the academic sidelines with the University of West Florida, with the University of Florida, with folks that do this every day, so that we can bring that statistical data to bear. And I know a lot of times you get meetings and you glare your eyes with the numbers, but they are critical ingredients to making it to where we want to go. The county has looked at, in discussions with the commissioners, what we need to do. For example, next week, Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Anderson are leading a group going up with other commissioners in the state of Florida, with intergovernmental affairs, with the White House, to talk about where we are on federal action items like Amtrak, like NCPs or ACPs and transportation and all of those things. Our goal at the local level is to come up with those allowable uses that we need to track the funding, and also how do we connect to the mission. But we've got to work the vision backwards. We come up with what the plan is, then we come back and do these elements meet those funding criteria? And that's what I keep saying very strongly to y'all. If we go chasing projects, or if you're only focused in what's important to you, we will fail. I'm telling you, we will fail. We'll have a bunch of mad people going, what do you do with $50 million? If we work the equation backwards, and we say, where do we want to end up? And we put these anchor bolts in there, and then we start bringing all the fundable resources, and they're different. In the federal restore side, education is not in that bill. I cannot use Pot 1 money technically to do something with the career source in the K-20. I can with Triumph. I can with Pot 1 money. So those of you that are old enough to remember this game Battleship, I say it all the time, I'm like E5, did I hit anything? That's where we are, but we need to do it by design. Bob, you've been saying strategic planning for a long time. We've talked about that. And real recapping this and where these dollars are going to come from, some of it is available with the federal government in the Federal Restore Act. Said, okay, we'll give you some planning grant money to work on your Pot 1. And remember, in Pot 1, the Board of County Commissioners actually controls those dollars. We fought very hard to make sure that it came back to them. This county, and again, the ones that were here earlier at the other meeting, and I get it to you, we're talking about a lot of money, but it's over 15 years. Yeah, we're talking about bonding. We're talking about what we can do with unique financial models. But the scenario is we have $39 million that our board controls that to me is like the bank. You own that part of the business. You can then use that money to leverage in these other things that I'm telling you. So if it's an infrastructure project, if it's broadband, we can say we committed $1.6 million in broadband already. We're going to the feds to do this, etc. So we're doing it. Our goal strategically at this point is to get an approval to engage for a strategic plan globally. We're also going to ask the board, because in that the state act with Triumph, it says we have to solicit projects from the school boards and from the cities, etc. So we've got to come up with a committee that kind of helps put that together. We purposefully, under her leadership, made this committee not a work. In other words, you don't get appointed by the commission, because we want people to talk freely. We want them to engage and come up with ideas. If you want to call him and she wants to call you, you can do that. We do still have to have the formal thing. So we'll have the Restore Committee, we'll have Triumph Committees, we'll work those. But in our goals right now is to mirror image what they've already done. That statistical data and the pillars that they created are very good. If we take quality of life, and if that's of interest to you, or if infrastructure is important to you, help us frame that so we can bubble up ideas. Our goal, Commissioner Jones wants us to hear you guys tell us what projects, which they're working on that, but what we come up with, and if it's quality of life, what does that mean? Is it walkable communities? Is it connecting our parks? Is it preservation? Is it conservation? But we said it earlier, what about resilience and diversification? How do you make this community work as one? It's not a South Walton, North Walton scenario. When your workers are coming from North Walton, or your ag opportunities are coming from North Walton, we're one vessel. You may see things differently, but you got to peel back all those, I guess, presupposed ideas and say, okay, how do we make it work? And so we're looking at education, we're looking at ag. I talked to Career Source, Michelle was great. And by the way, I know you said you're not going to stand up. She's new. She came, what was it, 23, 28 years with county services?
28 years in staffing, yeah.
A lot of these things are out there that you just don't know is there. Like these studies, where are they? We're going to try to put all that together. So whatever is of interest to you, you can look. Career Source does massive things. If we're talking about our veterans, we're talking about a kid trying to get a job. I told Charlie, for example, I know you're a substitute today. I kept saying, well, we need this and we need this. I went out to Charlie's place at the Emerald Coast Technical College. He's kind of already doing it. So I was like, I apologize. We've got great resources, but you got to know where they are. It's like marketing to the TDC folks that are in here. So our chairman and our commissioners have said, go get this done. So you've got a government engaged. That it's very rare to have this kind of an arena where you have it and it's ongoing. It isn't like a hidden, I'm up for election 2 years from now. This is every month the chairman wants to have this meeting. We want your ideas. We want you to keep doing it. We're going to find professionals that can help us, and that may mean lawyers, that may mean lobbyists, that may mean planners and grant writers. But and I appreciate it because you will hammer on a tax dollar as hard as anybody I know, but you know this is important, that we've got to spend the money to do this right. If we're foolish in this and we make mistakes, it's our fault. It's not the commissioner's fault. It's our fault. So wherever your sectors and your belief systems are, help us figure it. Could be everyone's fault. We're all crutches. But anyway, I'll hush and get off of that. But the next step is to get this approved. If you're interested in serving on a formal matter, like on a Triumph board or something, we'll probably come out with that once the board approves that. But this to me is where it's really going to get done, because you can talk, we can break up in groups. What I hope happens is that we take that exact model, and if it's quality of place, we get a subcommittee of you guys working on things. So if it's environmental, if it's parks or whatever, if it's infrastructure and you're helping us. But again, part of our job ongoing, each month we're going to bring a different component of this, like transportation. I bet you a lot of folks in here have touched transport, but you don't know there's a 2050 freight and logistics plan. You know, going to your point about what it is, the state has master planned our freight and logistics over the next, 25 years. Well, what does that mean in Walton County? Where's that report? And how does that affect us? My job that they direct me is to bring that to you. So if there's reports that you want, ideas that you need, etc., we're going to keep trying to work with Lou's, our public information officer. We're going to try to give everything to him where it's available to you. And if we know where something is, we'll tell you. The Florida Association of Counties, the Triumph, the website, look at each county. Each county has different things. You're going to hear multi-year implementation plans. You'll hear. How many of you are majorly focused on environmental components in the crowd right here? 2. All right, 3. All right, we got 3 people. How many of you have been involved with Pot 2 planning and what's happening with the Federal Restore Act? Of our 3, God love them, we got none. We need your help. There is $1.6 billion in that pot. And how are we then spreading that out, and what is the plan? Gus, for example, is on the Water Management Board. He's keys to the kingdom. He can help us with the 5 watersheds and what those plans and those activities are. So I'm not picking on the environmental folks. I'm saying if it's of interest to you, let's get you with the right people, with the right funding stream, and connect all those pieces together. Again, our plan, one Walton. With that, I'll turn it back over to you. Mike, do you have any thoughts or any more questions? Yes, sir.
As I came in as mayor, I did a lot of just loose thinking, and thinking like I was from 3 states away, and who would I go through to see what's happening in Walton, Louis, State County type thing. Of course, first name came to mind was St. Joe. And so I looked to see what St. Joe was doing, and then I began to see what they referred to TPO plans, which I didn't know what TPO even meant. But anyways, I began to see some of their plans in the next 24 years. Walton County looked pretty shabby, and from that point on, I have tried to make it a part of my existence, to make sure that in every, I don't care if it's transportation or environmental or whatever it is, that try to encourage our people to be more participating in these, and to get the right people. I mean, we've had people in TPO, and don't want to call any names, but I mean, they were just taking up space. Walton County could have been missed for the next 25 years with nobody speaking up. And I don't want to be, just like that sore thumb that every time I show up, you can count on me speaking up for Walton County. Because I know this does need to be a regional concerted effort, whatever we do. But I am sick and tired. I'm almost 67 years. of watching this county get passed over in so many areas. And so I just want to encourage the people who are speaking about the three that could help on the environmental. Please step up to the plate because we need representation. I go in these other counties that have got tremendous representation, and many times Walton County may have one person in the room, and Okaloosa may have 8. Escambia is going to have way more than that. And so whatever it is, whether it's transportation, environmental, or water, whatever it is, if you can represent us, please do. And I just want to really encourage that because I don't want to just be a squeaky wheel. I want to have a great plan.
Well, and you said it correct. Not only is it just general, we want people involved. It's going to take some courage. When you start building something like this, there'll be 10,000 people try to kill it before it steps and gets the first breath. You have to step up and go, well, that's not mine, but I get it. I get where they're going. We want a mom, for example, I said this in the earlier meeting, a mom will beat you to death about having an opportunity for their child. If we can show the north end of this county where we have a path where they can go to school, doesn't matter what it is, if it's ag, if it's autonomous vehicles, or whatever, they can, we don't kind of bring them here and then they leave and work in another community. We can keep them here. We'll have an army of folks helping us because we can do it. You got to light a fire. If $15 million doesn't light a fire, I don't know what it was. If $1.6 billion doesn't light somebody's fire, I don't know what it is. So, I mean, the toys are here if we can just get people circled. So those are great words. Yes, sir.
Well, just to follow up on the point, I think that's what you're doing. You're going to, at the strategic plan, you're going to identify the committees and where we need representation, right?
Yes.
And solicit memberships into those.
And you will see us, the chairman has committed with her time, which is tough on the commissioner, but to go to different parts of the county. We need to be in Paxton. We need to be down here. You know, we need to be in Mossy Head. So with the other commissioners and their districts and we're going to get out in the field and hear it. And so it's not just, but like stuff like this, filling out surveys, survey monkeys, and you might get 10% dealing, but we do need all that input. And then how do we make that become real? You know, how do you move it? And if any of you have been to a visioning, and I've done lots of, some of them are just horrible. And then some of them are fun. This ought to be fun. I mean, you're talking about something that could actually get done. You know, it's not like, well, they won't vote for it. We got to convince 7 people that our projects are crackerjack. And if we do that together, that ought to be everyone coming out of here to go. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. I just want to make one comment. Getting your act together, and that's basically what you're attempting to do and you are doing, and I'm excited to see you doing it so well in Walton County with the Commissioner's leadership, is the critical piece, because there's all these pots of money and they're available to you, and some of them, they're designated to you. You just have to decide how's the best way to utilize those as a community collaboratively, and so you don't fight each other. So creating a strategic plan which gives you a roadmap for the future, and then creating an open, fair, transparent solicitation process so everybody's applications are fairly treated and can be defended when somebody doesn't get funded. So not everybody will get funded everything is the critical thing. And those are the 2 pieces I could really say. I mean, in pot 1, you have $39 million. In pot 2, you can compete for those dollars with large regional projects, and it is billions. But those you have to compete for. In pot 3, the money that I are going to help you get, you're going to get $12.7 million. You're going to get that. And then we're working to bring that to $20 million. Our goal and our mission is to get each county's allocation up to $20 million. And then restore, you got $15 million the first year, and an opportunity to compete for $180 million. Year 1, right now, that we're in. Next year, you got a guarantee of $4 million and an opportunity to compete for $68 million. 13 more years that's going to happen. Think of this. It's an incredible opportunity. So I commend you for being so organized. And if you can do the 2 things Billy said, you're going to be ahead of the game.
Thank you for this time.
Jim?
Yeah, Billy, and I'll take this back to the chamber, and I'll see if we can't get John to make a presentation on our local elections in the fall. But the one thing that strikes me that's missing is Russell and his folks. And I know this is a completely voluntary thing, and it was a business roundtable or whatever, but in the talent area, where we've always, in this region, fallen short is, if you go look at South Carolina or the Golden Triangle in Mississippi, they always integrate that talent development with the high schools and the technical colleges and those folks. And if there's any way we can get one or two of the school board or Russell or his direct.
Let me back up. Number one, that's a great point, but we have actually missed it. Russell would have been here. His mother is having some surgery tomorrow. They've been great partners. I've had meetings with them. I love they have their cabinet meetings. They want to partner with us. They see where we can go. They're doing a great job with the Emerald Coast. And I think, again, where you frame that talent pool, Jim, you're exactly right. How do we move that so an 8th grader, a 5th grader, or a graduating senior sees where they can go? We have a good superintendent. We've met with our state college. We've met with our universities. They're working on, they've got some vision for Emerald Coast, and there's things that we learn. One of the things I saw, to your point, was we have construction management up there, and I was thinking, man, with all the construction, we got people booming with these people. Well, what's killing the Emerald Coast Technical College is a kid comes down here and shags says, hey, can I go work this weekend, moving two-by-fours? They'll drop out of his program, because I go make $10 an hour, and then they get penalized, from the funding side. So we have to think down, and you've done this at the county level, how would we then incentivize a business? If we can give somebody 10 extra points on an RFP, if they'll play with us and do it, and they'll hire 10 of these kids that have gone through that. So it does take all of us and looking linear. The one thing that this thing has done, I was disappointed when it went over 15 years, but the good thing about it is making people think linear and long term. Normally we're every 2 weeks or we're this annual budget. This thing makes you do it. So you might just said it perfect. This is for 15 years. If you got your stuff together, you can ring the cowbell. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to comment. Since the last meeting, I've had a few people ask me about what this is about. They'll hear about it and have no idea. One thing is it would be good to somehow, if this is the intent, which it seems to be, to incorporate that this is about the pursuit of BP funds, or however y'all want to say it. The other thing I want to mention is it's called a Business Leaders Roundtable. I would encourage you to include community leaders in that.
That's a great point.
We've got a lot of people in here that are in business. I'm one of them. Split personality, working for the business community, but also for the community. And I think that's really important because for many reasons, but a couple I'll mention. I mentioned this at the last meeting, that when people are considering locating or relocating a business in a place, sense of place and quality of life are getting more and more and more important to them in that decision. And so I think if you want a really good business outcome for the county and an economic outcome for the county, the end result, it's really critical to keep that piece of it in mind. And your community individuals, people that live here, play here, want to raise a family here, those are the people that can help guide that a lot. And two, I think for businesses, I think if you build the business culture and the economic culture in a place, keeping the people in mind as well, and the impact to the community as well, you're going to have more successful businesses in the end. And we're seeing that already around here with some of the things that we've done. And people tend to think of the people as kind of the nagging complainers. But I think if more people in the community were included in the beginning process, that would get a whole lot better.
That's a great point. I'll suggest it. I'm sure Cecilia would have no. We were trying to put this together and get it moving, but you're right.
And it's not a
And
criticism.
we need.
It's a good next step.
But if it's arts and culture, if it's our environment, when I was elected, we were talking about the Bay. One of the things that Lady told me would make great sense. She said, look, if you're an environmentalist or if you're a remote fisherman, I start with where we both have a common denominator. We both love this Bay. I thought, well, that's a great place to start. That's where we want to start. This is our community. So you're right. We need everybody, and we'll get that name changed. Any other suggestions, any ideas or thoughts? Yes, sir.
Billy, I know you went to the meeting last Thursday, saying IHMC. Mike, I don't know if you went to that or not. The next one on the 16th, 10:30 in the morning, you may want to be there because Pam Dana was tasked with, Dr. Dana was tasked with coming up with a methodology to put these grant applications together, and she was also tasked by Speaker Benson president gets to make sure they're not longer than 15 pages long.
Okay.
And they want a simple, quick application form, something that they can approve quickly, something that will be an economic engine for distributing these funds. And so if you have input into that, on how to help them put that together, I'm sure Dr. Dana would love to have that information. And you may want to get some thought as to how you want to have that structured so that we can be leaders in that.
That's correct, because they asked for that.
They asked for suggestions on how to do that.
Right, and that's, I fully intend to do that because I think.
And she wants to have a workshop. Part of this next meeting is going to be a mini workshop on how to put this proposal together.
The critical thing about that is that it gives as much flexibility as possible too, and not make the rules so tight or restrictive. Because anytime anybody has a pot of money to control, they start to want to dictate the outcome so well. You know, it's like your will. You know, you want to make your will specific so your kids can't mess it up, what you did for them. You know, they go overburdened with rules and regulations. So I'm going to help. Hopefully.
Right. So they're looking for suggestions.
Yes,
so
thank you very much.
You got some ideas on that, they're really great.
All right, let me pause for a second. The survey says they've counted up some numbers for today's kind of drill, so I'll turn it back over to Austin.
Yeah, again, we appreciate you guys doing that. So you guys were kind of guinea pigs in a little bit of a sense, because we've already done some regional workshops. The last one we had in Destin, I think a couple of you were there. I had about 100 people there. They did the whole interactive stickies on the wall. I remember we tried to do something similar to that. There's so many paintings and pictures here that we just went ahead and did this route. But I wanted to see specifically, to have you guys do them individually, to see how your results panned out compared to the other workshops that we won. And they're almost spot on, exactly the same. Transportation, and with transportation and quality of place were tied for first. And then facilities came in third behind that. And then on the second page, major arterial routes, major roads was number one, stormwater, underground utilities, water, intermodal rail, stormwater infrastructure in the industrial parks, education, workforce housing, downtown revitalization, and then broadband connectivity. That's exactly what we're seeing across the region. So I'm very, very glad to see that Walton County's in alignment with what we're seeing specifically in a whole regional basis. So you guys, no surprises here. So I appreciate you guys doing that. But yeah, it's apparently across the region we're seeing the same things. You guys are no different. So don't feel like you're left out of anything or you're
Everyone's having the same problem.
yeah, everybody has the same problem.
The only difference in us is that we are growing much faster than
Real quick too, going back to maybe Jim's point too about like with it, we have I think, a very innovative sheriff. During session, for example, I was with Senator Broxton and the Fort Walton group came in, their council people, and they were talking about opiate abuse and different things that were very important to them, the drug rehab on a regional basis. When they found out I was from Walton, they brought me in and talked about it. So our sheriff then followed up. You're going to see some things, I think, in areas that you normally don't think of, like law enforcement and corrections. He has a very different vision of what we can do with the community. He's talking about welding. He's talking about heavy equipment operating. He's talking about different programs working with you guys. And not only morally making the argument, but financially making the argument where we show the state and we show the commissioners where we can save dollars for that. And if you tie that in, I've never seen a sheriff take and look at taking over children and family services. He's talking about generational poverty. If we hit generational poverty and work with our ministers and our communities and our educations, the same things you're talking about from that talent pool, they've all got to be captured so we don't miss those pieces. So those kind of innovative ideas to me are what's cool when you start hearing it. Then we'll come back and figure out how to frame it and come up with an actual project. And then again, when we know what the application process is, advocating for that, making phone calls, calling Speaker Pence, calling Senator Gates, calling Steve, I'm calling them all. But if we show our work and we do a really good job of what we get, I don't think we can lose. And so with that, I've surely kind of enough. Chairman, I'll turn it to you and you can close this out or go with any questions and we'll do whatever y'all would like to do.
Well, I want to give a chance for anyone to make comments about anything that's important to you, your work. Any other comments about anything we've said today, future, anything you would like to see in the future, we'll just kind of open it up, and if you have things, I want to make sure everybody's having given an opportunity. We're going to do this around the county next. Our next meeting will be August 16th, and we're going to try to move it back to 4 to 6. We moved it up a little bit today because there's another event going on. But, and a place to be, we have decided where we'll have it. We do want to go around the county, you know. Yeah, we want to travel all around the county and get input and ideas. So, does anyone have anything else you want to share, or?
Lee, would you mind telling the chairman what you just said when she stepped out about the name?
Oh, yes. I just suggested that, because I've had several people ask me what this is all about, because they can't tell from the meeting announcements, that one, it would be nice, and I don't want to get a 15-word title, but to just somehow let people know that it's around planning for BP funding acquisition. And then also, instead of just business, it would be great if it was like business and community leaders.
Yes.
Because I think there are some folks that would want to be involved and may not consider themselves a business leader. But I think getting the community's perspective, residents' perspective in the mix is good as well. Which a lot of us serve dual roles there, but
that's a great idea, and I think our business community on here, we just not advertised it well enough, so absolutely. You don't have to be a business person, you just have to be a Walden County person, and that you're interested in improving your county, so absolutely. I mean, as I look around, I know Jason's real interested in, and many of us are, in daycare and stuff. We need more daycare, so we'll get into the specifics of what do you see as needs for Walden County. Jason, did you have your hand up? Is that what you're saying?
I was going to say about child care education. Also, you have some fisheries and stuff like that. This space where way underutilized. Right. Huge potential. But my big thing too is just as we work in the community and run into so many different things in the community, you know, we have a lot of, like you said, a lot of organizations are just doing their own thing, and we are not connected, running silos, and it's so ineffective. And then, you know, all these organizations are limited in their size and their resources, and so we have limitations of what you can really do, your capacity levels. And so we're running into all sorts of hurdles, and if we can all be together, then we can network and move. I mean,
Great point.
When I was just meeting with the hospital, because I do chaplain work, and we were looking for transportation for people that need transportation to the hospital or transportation to the grocery store, and how do we do that? And they were coming to the chaplain group, and I was like, yeah, I don't know how we can, you know, actually fund this or how we can work it out. And so aren't just groups doing it already? And then I hear some groups doing it, and I hear some of that they're doing it. Like, you know, nobody knows. Nobody knows the left or right.
One of the projects the chairman has asked me to work with her on is trying to form a community roundtable or group. And it originally started with the conversation more about special needs, disabled. And that started just from a conversation about parks and some of the different grant opportunities that are available for looking at all access parks, universal design, where anybody, regardless of disability or age, can assess the Parks and Recreation in Walton County. So, Chairman, it may be a way that we can kind of broaden that more just disadvantaged and bring more community leaders to the table with those conversations and make sure that's dovetailing into the bigger picture of the strategic plan.
Well, if you look at like that, to me, filtered into Aliqua and different NGOs that were doing things that are doing massive things. And when you slow down, you know, and I get called from everybody, when you slow down long enough, you go, man, that's a great project. We need to move some of those NGOs. So if it's our parks, NGOs, community bases, but like getting to the folks that move it, the Lions Club, you know, the Rotary Clubs, the different groups, where their missions are. There are a lot of different funding streams. I'll give you one quick example. Minority inclusion, in my mind, has been missed in a lot of this. When I say minority, I don't just mean, you know, disparity issues, etc. I'm talking about rural kids, minority kids, the whole package. And there's dollars out there. You know, when we were in D.C. Last year, Congress talked about these $500,000 hotspot grants for minority inclusion. We have an opportunity to reach our rural kids and minority populations into this package. So anything that we can do with your group and those type things, this thing has a big enough brush. And we don't want to overpromise and commit, but if we do our homework, I think we can do great things. So minority inclusion is going to be a big deal. I think that we can try to look at that and bring those services in as well. And just disadvantage.
You also got seniors, you got people that are isolated down here a lot. I don't know if that's going to continue trend, but if people move here, if you don't have any families, you don't have any connections, and then stuff happens, a crisis happens, they have nowhere.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the other part that we've talked about with transportation, the north to south corridor, as well as the east to west. That's not just about moving employees, or it's not just about tourism, it's also about people in our community who don't drive. And being able, is it Tri-Care, Tri-State? Tri-County.
Just try.
But part of that, we're just trying. Those residents, unless they have those dollars to pay for those services, they run out of those dollars, and that's all government funded. But if the county itself and the community is providing, transportation, and, we're never going to have transportation like a big city, but we can still have other modes of public transportation in Walton County. And so that's something the commissioner's really dedicated to as well. So I think that can answer some of those disadvantaged issues in our young adults with special needs and people with disabilities.
We're just waiting for the big Highway 98 accident when you got all these people that, I guess they work for Sam Besson, and they're walking to Walmart, they're doing bikes off of 98 in the middle of the night, and they just show up in peripheral vision. In dark clothes. In dark clothes, yeah, totally dark clothes. We're all black, and I'm going on 98. I mean, we need something. I mean, that's their way to get around. It needs to be another way.
And we do have a pilot program that we're doing in Tri-County on bringing people from the Puniac area to the south end. We're trying to figure out now an east-west corridor plan. Once that we get them here, they can go east or west. That will take some cars off the road, and then tell them a little bit about Owl's Head. That's the project they're about to
Well, specifically, there's a grant that the Regional Planning Council has worked on that is looking at specifically employees that would be the north to south and some east to west, actually get them to their location. So that RFP is out now, and we can talk more about that at our transportation meeting when you want to focus on that. But a little bit about what we're doing at Owl's Head. We would like to partner and be kind of a park and ride center point. And then obviously some of the things that we can grow up around that at Owl's Head, the general store, farmer's market, not really food trucks, but more like food huts. And so we're hoping that we can offer kind of, it'd always be like a rest stop, like you see on, on some of the bigger interstates where you can kind of one-stop shop and maybe offer, a little bit of a reprieve on Saturday in and out along 331 as well. But long-term, growing that not just into a agrarian-focused neighborhood development, but we're really working with the county on some innovative job training programs around agriculture, where we can get some of our kids and young people in the community back engaged in profitable agriculture, where there's a supply chain to work with the businesses on the south end that are needing those high-end products that everyone's touting out at the farm to table, and some all-natural quality beef and all of that.
When you said the water was one of the top, was that concerning the age and estuaries and all that? Was that water, was it just a pop?
That's under infrastructure, right?
Infrastructure, drinking water. Billy mentioned the bays as far as, that's kind of what we live around, and we want to make sure we preserve those, because actually that's part of our
That's
tourism.
what you're selling.
Yeah, that's what we're selling, that's where, we get a lot of our business from these people.
That's good with the time with Oculus.
Yeah, it's good time, Oculus or whatever, but what I want to make a point is that we've already been approved, we've got a fishery, you brought up fishery, Jason, we've got a fishery component along with aqua plant nursery with the college, with education, already put together with Choctaw-based Alliance. It's ready to go. And we can tie that in, it creates jobs, it puts fish back into our environment. We're also doing reefs, we're doing reefs off the beach, and we're getting ready to put reefs 3 miles out, so we can fill those reefs with these fish that we produce. So those are the things that are starting to bring together, not only just the community, that's creating jobs for the community, but that also provides other resources for our tourism.
Absolutely, yes.
So, to me, I mean, we've got one on the table, ready to go. It was number 1 on the restore list that the commissioners approved here, about a year or 2 ago. So that's kind of where we are. You've got.
Well, and not only that, and that multi-year plan should be approved any day, but there's $2 million that's available with the federal Pot 2 money that we were talking about. And Okaloosa, Walton, Holmes, and Washington have signed an agreement between those 4 counties to be basically that estuary hub between Chattahoochee Bay between us. And, you know, we're competing. Escambia will have Perdido Bay and St. Andrews Bay, but we hopefully that whole panhandle will get one. But those are, so we have programs, and we could center the estuary programs, feds to pay attention. Great ideas.
So, and along with that, there's also a water quality monitoring facility. We're basing it out of here with this proposal, which means that it covers the whole panhandle. Currently, we have to send all of our samples down to Gainesville. That way we have more control of what's going on up here, because as we grow, these infrastructures start growing, we got issues. The rivers, we're starting to go around the riverbeds also, so you got to watch what growth and what they're sending down those rivers into our nice pristine bays. Because I want to keep it that way. I want to give back, and that's one thing I want to give back too. So with that part of it, that's another component that we can kind of keep an eye on, make sure our base stays in good condition.
Absolutely.
All right,
And
so
we have projects to get people off of septic tanks. We still have septic tanks on the bay.
Well, that's your Pot 3 project that you're trying to get some money for.
Listen, I don't know what all these pots are. Bill's gonna figure out, I can spend money, I love spending money, so I'm just gonna tell him my vision and along with.
Legislature, worry on pot, you can worry on pots for a long time.
I think I've heard this presentation 7 times and I still have a cheat sheet and I'm still not sure where all the money's gonna come from. But at any rate, I know what we need, a lot of what we need, and I'm listening to you to hear more of what we need. And so we'll get it. I mean, we're going to get there. My goal is to make Walden County one Walden. I don't know how in the world we're going to get over the stigma of North Walden and South Walden, but we're going to do it. I just truly believe that somehow we're going to come together as a county and we're going to see great things. And we'll wrap up in about 5 minutes. Any other comments today?
Well, you and I have talked about this evening, but one of the ways to tie that in is TDC in the entire county.
Right, and we're going to be there. I truly.
I think that's something really important.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, sir.
One thing Billy said that I thought was really intriguing and special is that he said something about slow down. And from a business philosophy perspective, at least in the strategic brand building world, you have to slow down to speed up. And I know it sounds super counterintuitive, but the idea that collectively people are coming together to make some defined decisions, and yes, you have to kind of put your personal goals behind the overall goal. But that, as a new business coming into this area, that's a really intriguing philosophy. And we've seen it work in Cincinnati and other cultures. It seems like everything's a little fuzzy, and there's so many pots and so many tentacles that it's a little hard to digest, frankly. But one of the things to back up what Lee was saying was, if you were to think about transparency or continuity, there's almost like if you had dots that were out there that would actually connect things. I always feel like that's in the web world. It's always great to have face-to-face and knowing business, but just to have a person sitting in a different county looking in, they can actually go in and digest all the content that's there at their bed or their dining room or wherever they want to digest that. But it's intriguing to hear that you have to slow down. I know there's some dates out there that probably are defined. It would be helpful to know where those are and what pots have to be defined by what date, just to know what part we want to play a role in.
That's a great point, and I'm glad to do it, because it is complicated. But I'll give you a great example of what you just said. The state of Florida spent, after the oil spill, Commissioner Jones and I were elected back in those days fighting with it. But the scenario that we looked at, Stafford Act runs all of our emergency management stuff. When the oil spill happened, we fell under the Oil Pollution Act. Never heard of the Oil Pollution Act, we were going through. When they started talking about NCPs and ACPs and LCPs, I thought, what the heck?
Those are contingency plans.
They are national contingency plans, area contingency plans. To this day, one of the things that I appreciate Chairman doing, she's going to bring this to the White House next week, she's got to stick. The scenario is nothing was done. The state of Florida spent $300,000 for a statewide oil spill, basic best practices scrub. Great ideas of what we had to deal with on the ground from a policy standpoint, with all of these from operations and BP being the responsible party. I thought if I heard that one more time, I was going to. But the scenario is we need policy changes at both the FEMA, federal level, state level, etc. We didn't do anything with that. If today we had another oil spill kind of a thing, we didn't change one policy. As soon as all this started happening, going into money, people went sideways and they left that. And she listened to me, and because we went through it. And if you were elected in that time and you were sitting there going, what in the world? It was a mess. And so we're going back up there with our meeting next week to readdress that and tell Intergovernmental Affairs, pay attention to the policy. If we had, and it could be the same if it was an airborne pathogen or another oil spill, who's in charge? You know, and how does that work? It was a mess. So we are slowing down to look at policy. All right, anything else? And thank y'all so much for your afternoon. We appreciate it so much. Thank y'all.